Hi, and thanks so much for joining me for my top 10 eyeshadows of 2021. If you'd like to see that, please keep watching. So my first eyeshadow I'm going to pick is something that won't be a surprise to you. It's by Chanel. It's Tisse Rivoli. This is my favorite Tisse palette, and this is one that I think if you're going to pick up one palette from Chanel, at this point, I still have to review some of the other ones really closely, but as it stands, this would be the one that I would recommend because I think it will work on most skin tones, and it's neutral, but it still has some interest to it in terms of this shift that it has. It's got a little bit of like a purpley mauvey thing happening, but it's still quite neutral. Very easy to wear colors, easy to blend as well. I think it's just such a pretty one. You can use it so many different ways. You can use all 4 shades together. You can pick a couple shades. There's some one and dones in here as well. I love this palette. It's such a beautiful one. And whenever I have a look that I get a lot of questions about with the eye products, it's typically the Tisse Rivoli palette. Another palette that I've been loving this year is a more whimsical palette. It's by Chantecaille. It's the Butterfly Eye Quartet. And you can see I've used it quite a bit this year. It's a lovely up close in person kind of makeup. I think that it doesn't translate as well on camera. It's not as bold, but up close it's really beautiful, and I think that this shade is so unique. It's that shimmery green shade, but it has a shift to it as well. I've really loved green eyeshadows this year, and this was such a fun palette, especially for the spring. And then this is what I would call a staple palette because it's neutral and it's matte, so you can use it with so many other palettes. You can use this as a crease color if needed. You can use this as an eyeliner. You can deepen up with that gray as well if you like, and you can also highlight under the brow bone, in the inner corner, even though it's matte. I like that it's more subtle, so you can use it as an entire eye look as well if you want something muted, simple. I think this one's a really pretty one. It's the Charlotte Tilbury, the Sophisticate. So I think matte palettes are harder to come by, and I think they might actually be harder to do because with some of the shimmery shades, the more bold shades, I've said it before, it's easier to hide imperfections. It's more difficult to hide imperfections in the actual formula with a matte, I think. This one's a beautiful matte palette, a neutral palette if you're looking for one. Next is a fairly new product to me, but I have been so impressed with it. Speaking of mattes, it's the Natasha Denona palette, the one in dark. I know it's a face palette, but these eyeshadows are so pretty. Specifically this, and this. Those are the shades that I use in there because these are a little bit too shimmery for me, but I love these mattes. I love using this as a one and done. I'll even use this as a one and done sometimes, but they blend so easily, so seamlessly. Really impressed with these eyeshadows by Natasha Denona in this palette. That's another matte option for you. I know it's not completely an eyeshadow palette, but the shadows in here are so good that I had to mention them. Then we've got some singles, some one and dones. I've got a DIOR Mono here. This one is in Poncho. It's a really nice neutral shade. It just looks really sophisticated. If you put this on, tight line, and then put some mascara on, I think it's a really pretty one that will go with lots of different lip shades as well. You can go bold with this, you can go more neutral, and I love the finish as well. So that's a lovely one and done with not too much shimmer in terms of intermittent shimmer. It's all quite even in its reflective quality. Then we have another single. This is by Chantecaille. It's one of their luminescent eye shades. I actually think they're all beautiful, but this is the one I used the most this year. It's the one in Elephant. They call this a taupe gray, which is probably why I love this. I love taupe and I love gray, so taupe gray is perfect. I love using this with a little bit of rose water and then applying it that way. I think that maximizes how beautiful this shadow is. This is definitely if you want more impact and a little bit more dimension, but it's one of those shadows that looks like you spent a lot of time on it when you didn't. It's just a one and done, really beautiful. I would pair it with this eyeliner as well, this black eyeliner that I love so much. I'll talk about eyeliners in a bit, but I would pair it with that and put some mascara on for a nice dramatic look. Or you could use it dry as well. It's not as dramatic, but it's a lovely shimmery eyeshadow. Now this one is limited edition and no longer available, but I had to mention it because it was so pretty and I hope that they bring this back as a permanent color. It's the Chantecaille in the Regal Emeraude. It's gorgeous. This green shade, it's again got a shift to it. Let me see if you can see it, but if I turn it like this, you can see that it's not completely all green, but I loved this really close to the eye. It looked so pretty. I never had a chance to wear this all over the eye. I still want to do that, but I wanted to mention it because it's one of the most beautiful shades I saw come by in the entire year in terms of eyeshadow. Really stunning, stunning shade. So maybe Chantecaille will bring it back. Sometimes they bring back things that are limited edition, depending on if they do really well. Kind of like that powder. That blur powder was supposed to be limited edition, but they brought it back, and I'm so glad they did. Speaking of Chantecaille, they also sell singles of their refill eyeshadows, and those are really pretty. So they're some of the nicest basic, that doesn't sound exciting, but basic eyeshadows I've tried. And I have a little trio here that I love to put together, and anytime, this is a Z palette that I have here, but anytime I put this look together, that's another one that's frequently asked about. So this is Shell, Java, and Lapis. So I can put Shell all the way up to the eyebrow, and then I'll go in the crease with Java. This is the prettiest crease color. It looks very similar to Poncho, but I still love this the most for that crease color. I think it's so pretty. And then I'll tight line, and I'll go in with Lapis as an eyeliner. So having that navy really close to the eye is so pretty on brown eyes. So I love this trio. And I think that this really comes across as a very soft crease color if you're looking for one that's really easy to use. It has just the slightest reflective quality, but nothing sparkly in there. So I love that trio. Then I'm choosing this one. Actually, I have this one on now. You're probably wondering about it, but it's the Byredo palette. It's, I know, limited edition, but these were the most exciting palettes that I saw come by this year. This is Fete Noir, the one that has all the gray and black shades. I just was so excited to try this and so excited about the final look. And I have worn this out, so it's definitely wearable. At first I thought it wasn't wearable, but it is very wearable. It just depends on how intense you want it to be. But it is a very stunning look when it's all pulled together. So I, of course, went in with that. And I used a couple colors today. I used this one, this deep shade, and then this middle shade. And then I actually have that on top of an honorable mention. I know I have these honorable mentions, but this one's so new to me that I haven't had time to really test it out. In fact, I've just worn it a couple times at this point, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But my final palette is the other Byredo palette, Metal Boots in the Snow. This is another very special palette. This is maybe more unique in terms of the shades that are in here than Fete Noir, because these are some shades I think you probably could find. I don't know if you can find the textures in other shadows, but this one I definitely haven't seen colors like this, especially all put together. Such a pretty one, and that green shade is very special. So if you want something that's really unique, maybe not your first or your third or even your fifth palette, but maybe like if you have 10 palettes past that, maybe you want to pick this up. It's a really pretty one. Or if you really love these shades, I would pick it up. Hopefully it's still available at this point, but I was really excited about both of these Byredo palettes. And then my honorable mention is the Lid Lustre in Mink by Victoria Beckham Beauty, and I had that on first. So I had that on as kind of the base, and then I buffed it out up here, so that's what you see on top. And then I went in with the Byredo palette, this deepest shade here, and I just went close to the lash line, and I took this gray and I patted it on the top. I love that Victoria Beckham Beauty Lid Lustre. I just feel like I haven't tried it enough for it to make the top. I'm going to pick up some more of those. So maybe it'll make the top 10 next year, along with maybe some of the other shades, but I'm quickly impressed with that one as well. I almost forgot my top 5 eyeliners. So I have a couple from Chanel and a few from Chantecaille. So my Chanel products, we have Gris Graphite by Chanel. It's a beautiful silvery gray shade, which is so beautiful in the waterline itself. So many not sure types of eyeliners for me. Like I wasn't sure what to put in the waterline for some of the gray colors or some of the cooler shades. It's a really pretty one though. And then Vert Émeraude was a beautiful one as well. It's a greenish shade, nice and cool though as well. I love cool colors in the waterline. And then for Chantecaille, we have their new eye Kajal in black. This is the black eyeliner, which I have on now. I've used it for smoky eyes, both cool and warm tones. I just tightline and I put in the waterline as well. It's a really pretty one, so smooth going on, never tugs. It's just such a beautiful deep shade that really helps the eyes pop. I think it's such a stunning one. We also have Jasper, which is a lovely one for more brown tones if you want a brown, and it has a little bit of a reflective quality in it. And I've used this one quite a bit. That's kind of how I know that they're favorites, because I use them quite a bit. And then I also love Black Forest by Chantecaille. It's another really pretty green shade. I think a little bit more unusual. It does remind me a little bit of Vert, Émeraude, but it is a beautiful, lovely, deep green cool shade. So I will be selecting my top eyeshadow. It could be a palette, it could be a single, we'll see. But I will be including that in my favorites of 2021 when I do an entire look. But let me know what you've been loving this year in terms of eyeshadow so I can make sure I can try them next year. But that is it for today's video, so please take care of each other, stay well. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you next time.